Good boy. You ready? Mwah. Okay, let's go. Let's go.
Good morning. How's everyone doing today? Today's going to be an interesting live stream for me because we're going to be taking a look at some of my first work as a professional photographer. We're looking at work from my first year to maybe my first few years. I'll let everyone trickle in, and then once everyone's here, we'll get started. I'm just going to fix my light situation real quick. A little bit improved. So how's everyone doing today? So I'm just going to let people trickle in. It's kind of weird. Not a lot of people have joined yet. Usually I get people right away. Did you see in the video, you could see I was shooting with the Vito? I just thought I'd play something different. I threw a POV camera on my dog a few years ago while he was playing at the dog beach, and it's just like mesmerizing footage to me. I could watch it all day, just watching Brixton run around and have the best time of his life, you know? Those are the moments I actually really, really appreciate to just be alive, is when I'm with him and just not a care in the world, you know? I'm looking forward to this summer so I can go running around the dog beach again in Santa Barbara. We'll drive up for like a day, just go to the dog beach all day, run around, hit up a cafe afterward, which is like one of my favorite things to do. Have a cup of coffee. I drink too much coffee. I love the Vito 2. It's one of my favorite cameras I own. It's what got me into folding cameras, but I haven't really had others yet. But it's what got me like really into and curious about folding cameras. While I'm killing time, I think I might have it right over here. Let's take a look. Yeah. This is my Vito 2. I have an original case for it too. If you're not into film photography or you just haven't really experimented with folding cameras yet, these are awesome. I love them. Like, this camera fits right into your pocket. Even though it's kind of bulkier, it has like a very streamlined design. So if you're not familiar with the Vito 2, can you just show that pic, the fourth one? I don't know which pic you're asking me about. Oh, you want like the one on the screen right now? Oh. Yeah, well, welcome to the live stream. Today we are going to talk about my first few years as a professional photographer. We're going to look at some of the very first work I shot. But while people are kind of adding or joining in, oh good, we're getting more viewers. I'm going to show you guys my Vito 2. Vito 2 is the first and only folding camera I got, but I want more. You know, it's always going to be special to me, even though there are better ones because it was my first folder. But it's really cool. So as you guys can see, it's pretty streamlined. It's kind of like pill shaped, so it will slide into your pocket really easily. I'll get to that. It will slide into your pocket really easily. I have other really great small cameras that are actually smaller that won't slide in. Like for example, I have a lot of my cameras in drawers, so I don't have it out, but like the Rolly 35, which is the smallest, one of the smallest cameras I own, it has a retractable lens, but this is a folding lens, and what you do, press a little button on the bottom, and then you can pull it out. And I mean, when you think like vintage retro film camera, like this is, I think, it, you know. Folding cameras kind of went out of style. They had their share of problems. I don't know what you call these again. These like, there's like, it's kind of hard to see with the light. Like there's these accordion, like attachment, and they get light leaks. That's a big problem that they'll have. I got mine for like 40 bucks probably, approximately. I don't remember exactly, but somewhere around 40 bucks. There are better ones that are more well known. If you've been following my channel, you might know that I had a camera addiction. Not like, so you guys also know I'm not into like gear and obsessing over it, but like vintage cameras, I got really into it for a while, where I just enjoyed the process of shooting them. So I would buy a whole bunch and then I would sell them in order to buy others, and just I'd shoot a roll, and I'd enjoy shooting the roll as much as I enjoyed the photos I got out of them. So let's look at your comments. I don't know how to say your name. Vibhuti. You'll tell me, I hope. I'm still not sure what pick you're talking about. The cost I covered, 40 bucks. Yes, it fits my pocket easier than the Rolly 35. Yeah, the Rolly 35 is smaller, but it doesn't have a streamlined kind of pill-like shape, and so you can't just slide it into a pocket. This I can slide into a pocket. The lens is protected. I don't need a lens cap. This is really one of my favorite cameras to shoot with. There are a lot of challenges with it. I like the challenge of shooting with vintage cameras. The big challenge would be that you don't have, it's not a rangefinder. They do have foldable rangefinders. They have folders that are medium format. This one is basically just a viewfinder, a little hole. And I found that it actually my lens might be a little bit out of alignment, or maybe it's just due to the fact that it's not really lined up and I'm not really seeing through the lens. But I tend to crop a little wrong when I shoot with this camera, but I love the process of setting everything's on the front. You set your shutter on the front, your aperture. You have to actually trigger the shutter. So there's an advance mechanism to advance the film, and then you have to cock the shutter as well. So you have to do all of that, and every time I shoot with this camera after not using it for a while, I'm always having to, let me bring my mic closer. I'm always having to kind of like remember all the little stuff I have to do. But I enjoy it. Like I enjoy like every little thing I have to do before I can take a shot. One thing you can do with the camera is you can actually, I haven't used it in a while and I'm forgetting. I think maybe I don't remember if you're supposed to wind it before closing it, or no, that's the Rolly. There's something with the Rolly, like I think you have to, someone will probably know, you have to like advance the shutter, or you're not supposed to advance the shutter and then close it. I don't remember. But what I'll do with this camera is I will actually set everything up, cock the shutter, and then I'll just, there's two tabs here, I close the window, and now it's ready to shoot. So I just hit a little button on the bottom, pop it open, and I'm good to go. Maybe I'll start every live stream and I'll share one of my film cameras. If you guys would enjoy it, I'll do it. I know I enjoy talking about them. I'd love to get right away into the topic. I don't want to keep you guys waiting, but also I need to wait for people to kind of file in. If you're here, say hello, because I don't think it's giving me a correct count unless there's really only 4 people today. It's possible. It's possible my stream yesterday was so bad that nobody came today. Let's take a look. I'm just going to prepare. I need to do one thing. I'm going to pull up a browser because today what I want to do is I want to show you guys a little bit of everything from, just some stuff I thought was my best work 10 years ago. Actually, 12 years ago is when I started. I won't be able to show you the galleries of the very first jobs I shot because they're on external hard drives. I was second shooting at first, I do have copies of all the photos I took, but it might be a little hard to get. I have to find the hard drive they're on. I'm pretty sure I know where it is, but okay, window capture. I'm just gonna pull up a new window. Let's take a look. You guys can tell me what you think today. Hi, Monique. You can tell me what you think today. It won't hurt my feelings. Was I trash? My first year or two. We'll find out. Okay, here we go. All right. Yes, please. Was that to my question about sharing a vintage camera? There is a delay, and also I'm not checking the comments right away because I'm looking at the screen, so try to give me some context when you comment if you can. I'll figure out a better way to do this going forward. I jumped right into the whole live streaming thing. I've figured it out pretty well, I think, at this point, but still. All right, we're going to get started, but before I do, let's just, I want to give you guys all my resources. As always, it's important who you're watching on YouTube. Make sure you know their perspective. You decide who's qualified to teach. You decide who's interesting to listen to, but I think it's important to be transparent, so I always provide my website so you can see my work. I don't just put it's not just my professional photography. I do have a blog you guys can check out. And if you guys are interested, there is a resource tab at the bottom of the menu. And I actually put together an event photography playlist. And this playlist is a little bit different than watching it on my YouTube because I also write about each video. So that way you guys, there's like a trash collection. You guys can probably hear that outside. So if you guys follow the resource link, the second link I just posted, there's those event photography videos, and each video has a little blurb writing about what you'll get out of the video. That way you don't have to sit and watch every video. If you want to watch every video, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm on Instagram as well. So if you want to see my film photography or stuff I just take for myself for fun, you can hit up at retrograding. And if you want, I also finally made a professional account for myself as well, for my professional photography. I'm thinking tomorrow will either be a critique video or it will be a video on marketing. It's going to be like basically I'm going to go through all your different options. We'll talk about it. We will kind of touch on everything. So it will be an all-encompassing, not super deep, but just explain a little bit of everything: Yelp, Google Business Listing, SEO, etc. I hope you guys can hear me okay. There's a lot of noise outside, and I can't do anything about it right now. It's like construction. Jesus. All right. Okay, so let's take a look at the work. So here we are. So when I want to hear what your questions are for me. I didn't have a ton of time to prepare. Someone actually gave me this prompt, I think, and I was kind of thinking about it already. But the questions I have for myself are: how have I improved? How have I improved? Have I improved? Is the work better because the gear is better, etc. So when I first started as a photographer, I was shooting with a 40D. That was my first digital camera, and I think it was like $1,100 when I got it. Right away, I shot with it, and then after working with my first like primary photographer, meaning I was second shooting, I saw the files on his camera, and I was like, these look a lot better than mine. So I right away wanted to upgrade. But I started off basically as a poor photographer. I didn't have a day job that could basically supplement my professional photography pursuit. Do you guys hear that? It's loud as hell. Hang on. I told them they're going to have to reschedule their construction, and they obliged. So what was I saying? Shooting with the 40D, the main photographer I was working with had a 5D Classic, and I was like, these look way better. Yeah, I think he had the Classic still. I think it was right before the 5D Mark II came out. But I tried to upgrade right away. This shot right here is kind of like... This is actually from the very first wedding I ever shot, like the very first one. I've talked about this before. I basically had, like, I believe I shot this with my 40D. I must have. It was the first job. It looks like 2009, actually. So I moved back in 2008, and then I right away started deciding, okay, I'm going to pursue professional photography. I used some grant money I had to buy my first digital camera. I think I owned a Rebel for a little while, the first digital Rebel, and then but I didn't have that anymore. And I learned on film, but I was teaching photography, and I knew my stuff. I didn't know the trade, and so I knew I had to learn the trade. I was humble enough to understand that, and so I didn't want to just jump right in and tell people, hey, I'm a full-fledged professional photographer, you should hire me. I mean, I wasn't yet. So what I did is I did a Craigslist ad, and I said, look, I teach photography, I know photography, but I'm building a professional wedding photography portfolio. I'd love to shoot your wedding. And I shot this wedding for like $196, basically enough to cover my rentals. I even brought like a buddy there as an assistant, gave him like a camera. I don't know what I gave him though, but or maybe he was just like hanging out, you know, just for moral support. But there were a few keepers. Here's one of the shots I got of the garter toss or whatever you call it. And I actually think I caught the moment. I think very early on I understood it wasn't all about spectacle. It wasn't about these big money shots. It was about catching a good moment. Let's take another look. Here is the first wedding I shot, a shot from the first wedding I shot, in which I was a real working photographer. I was mostly second shooting, and what I did is I started off as a second photographer, and then I would slowly book my own work. I don't think I charged her very much either. I think I charged like $1,100, which is very low. But, you know, it was someone I knew. I think they're still happily married. And I remember as a beginner photographer or professional photographer is that I was really hard on myself, and I felt really like I wasn't happy with the work, but it's not that I did a bad job, you know. It was a somewhat on a budget, and I was used to shooting these like $200,000 weddings because I worked with a guy who was booking. He had the high-end market pretty much captured, and so I was used to these really, really expensive weddings, and going to shoot my own, it's like I had different expectations. So you have to remember, it's not about the end product, it's about the job you did. If someone has a wedding in a homeless shelter, you know, it's not going to look as good as, I don't know what kind of an example that is, but it won't look as good as a wedding shot in a beautiful forest. But as a photographer, your job is to just use what you have and do the best you can with it. Here's one of the first events I shot. I still think I have this on my website. There's a few shots I still keep on my website. This shot, Lightroom's cropping it a little bit, I think, but let's take a look. This shot, I still am happy with. Oh, it's not cropping. That looks good. I'm still happy with. I caught a real good moment. My favorite part is the kid in the back. This was shot on the 5D Classic. The resolution is not quite there, and you can see it. If you do look, the gear has improved. I mean, you have to remember this was only like 12 megapixels. One thing I didn't like about the 5D Classic is that on a bright or overcast day, it was impossible to see the screen, so I had a really bad habit of overexposing when I should have just used my histogram as a more accurate means of seeing what my exposure was, because the screen was very misleading. So I remember that day thinking everything was underexposed and then overexposing it all. Engagement session for that couple we just looked at. Me trying to figure out how to flare and get like a cool backlight. I think I didn't fully understand the best way to go about it at the time. Still made an interesting image, I guess, and I think if I did more editing, which you guys know I don't like to do, I can make this image look nicer than it actually does. But what mattered is I caught a moment, and I know they loved it. I still get I haven't heard from them in a little while, but I know they love the image. I've talked to them about it. So when you first start out, a lot of your work will come from people you know. And I went to high school with Stacy here. I didn't really know her in high school, but I was good friends with her cousin. And I became friends with her fiance through jiu-jitsu, and they ended up hiring me to shoot their wedding. And so this is from one of the early portrait sessions I did. I was still on that 5D I just got a text. I'm going to tape this cord into my mic because it's constantly falling out. But what I was saying, yeah, there's a delay too, so I didn't realize it. I don't know how much audio we lost. I'm sorry about that. But what I was saying is that when I started out, there was a lot of pressure, even though I can tell in looking at my early work that I always understood it was about the moments. At least when I'm looking in the galleries I created for my portfolio, they're all emotional high moments. But I still had a lot of pressure to do what everyone was doing or what I learned from the people I was working with second shooting. And as I said, I learned a lot of what I wanted to do, and then I figured out what I didn't want to do by having that experience. So, yeah, I always understood that it was about the moments, but I had pressure to also do things the way everyone was doing it. And one thing that is important to identify and take a step back from is to say, okay, wait, why am I shooting things the way I'm shooting it? Am I shooting it because I believe in it or because that's just the way it is? And with wedding photography especially, I think it goes through trends. And a lot of these trends are hyper trends because of social media now, where things are just derivative. Everyone starts doing something a certain way, people like it, they copy it, and it catches on like wildfire. And luckily, it burns out pretty fast too if it's bad. But yeah, take a step back. Think about the way you want to work. And I understood that, but I felt like I felt the push to conform. Early portrait session. So here's a wedding in which, luckily, I was really into lighting back then because it was at a hotel. It was at a hotel that had terrible lighting. The wedding started after the sun had set, but there really wasn't much to photograph. There wasn't really anywhere I could shoot interesting portraits at all. And so I had to entirely light the shot myself. Again, nowadays, I'm not as into this kind of look. I'd rather just capture and not have to like pose anyone. But back then, I did more of it. Here, I just went for a really artistic lighting setup. I'm using, basically what I'm doing, I'm double lighting. I'm using a key light and then a rim light. So 2 strobes. I didn't own any studio equipment yet. Basically, I was using speed lights. I'll note, by the way, here, let's see if I can check my metadata. I'm at f4. I wonder what lens I shot it with. Let's take a look. Oh. Looks like I'm shooting with the 17-40. So I'm actually shooting wide open with that. I thought I would have been smart enough to stop down. I probably didn't, because if I stopped down, I would get a more defined pattern or shape to my backlight. But I'm guessing I shot wide open in order to not make my speed lights work too hard. They don't have a great flash output. And so if you're making it work really hard, it will take time to recycle. That's one benefit of having strobes, like real studio strobes. I haven't looked at a lot of this work in a long time. Yeah, oddly, a lot of it hasn't changed that much. In some ways it has, and in some it hasn't. Here I'm basically MacGyvered a grid. I didn't have like a real grid. Basically, I took a tube of cardboard I made. I wrapped it around, like made like not a funnel, but like a tube, and attached it to my flash. And then I used that to kind of, as sort of not a grid, but a way to narrow my light beam and then just light them. And there's Brixton. He's in there because I wanted him to be there. I just got Brixton. He was probably like 5-6 months old here. Um, this shot I probably could have done better. I don't think I had an assistant, but I wanted to reflect light. Again, now I'm more likely just to make my lighting situations work without using a reflector. But ideally, you do want it to come from above. Here it's coming from a bit below, and that's why it's creating somewhat unflattering shadows. So I shot this in 2012. So actually I'd been at it for a while, about 3 years. And I think I was coming into my own at this point, where I knew what my photography was about. Like, I knew within about a year, okay, I know the direction I want to go in. And I'm not trying to sound like, I don't like how it makes me sound, but I kind of understood that it was about capturing moments and documenting before that was what was in. And I believe that's what's in now, which is great, you know? But I was doing it from the beginning. I knew it was about capturing the big candids and not about these cheesy posed shots. This was from a quinceañera in which they said, hey, we don't want to hire someone from the community because it's all one way. Like, they wanted natural shots, and that's what I was doing. And so they hired me. I think that's also from the same job. And I don't know, I just threw that in there. Here and there, in my professional portfolio, I'll actually put a shot that I just like. That wasn't necessarily a paid job. It's my friend's kid, and Brixton. That is really annoying. The piece of grass or whatever, the weed going across his face, but I never wanted to deal with photoshopping it. Okay, so I know that I got it early on in retrospect because this folder, there's a few shots we already saw, but I titled it Emotion. Like, I think I even had, you know, before I knew anything about how to like market or anything, but on my website I had a gallery, I think, called Emotion, where I just put like the big emotional moments. Although I wouldn't count that last one. Like, there's emotion here, but usually I wanted it to be like capturing someone's face, a reaction. These were shot at the Queen Mary. I think my mom referred me here to this couple. So here we go. Sometimes, like, I can see a good image in black and white and color. I love converting those big emotional moments into black and white. It kind of less is more. It lets you really zero in on the emotion, the moment, and not have any distractions. But at the same time, the color I found to be really beautiful as well. One thing I always understood is, on top of all that, is that when you're shooting formals, some of the best shots come in between the actual formal. And I've seen photographers shooting formals, and when people start joking around, like the groomsmen or whatever, they'll put their camera down and have a look of frustration, like, I'm trying to do a job here, like, what are you doing? And I remember just looking at them in awe. I'm like, how are you not capturing this? That's the shot. That's the best shot of the day, not the formal. You have to get formals done. They're important. But a formal is not the most important in the sense of, like, that's not what they're, when they look at those, they're going to be like, oh yeah, I remember that day. But when they look at this image, for example, they're going to remember what they felt like in that day. And that's a big difference. And I always knew that. And so you can kind of let this happen and capture it, and you can also kind of give prompts in order to get moments like that. It could be as simple as, hey, can you guys look at each other? If you want like a big smile, a laugh, that one works. But you could say, like, you know, just give your brother a hug, and like, or like, hey, I want you to take in this moment. So here you go again, capturing the moments in between.
probably, if I'm remembering right, what happened in this shot is I said, look at each other. They started laughing, and then I had them look back at me, and then I could get a shot like this rather than like a pose. Here we go again. You know, you can have them look at each other, get them to laugh, and then say, okay, look back at me now, and you can get those moments. You know, not immaculate composition here, but I guess I grabbed what I could grab. Peter here was the proudest groom I've ever photographed. Love this guy. He was the proudest groom. So here we are in my emotion gallery. Seems a little cheesy too. My friend Steven. Skip through a little bit. I always loved this moment. Like the kid was so like proud and showing off or whatever, and the kid behind him. Okay. I loved this moment here. So if you guys can tell me, if you compare this work to my work now, what do you think? I'd love to hear. Like, do you guys think my work has changed? I haven't really thought too much about it. I'm always working on being a better photographer, and I'd like to believe that I've improved quite a bit. But when I look at other people's work or work I'm no longer work on my own work that I'm separated from and a lot of time has passed, I'm a little bit more forgiving. And so while I probably didn't think I was a great photographer then, like when I look at it now, I'm like, yeah, some of this is pretty good. So I don't know. All right, some portraits I shot. First year in business here, I think. Let's see if I can get a date. It was 2010. So I think in 2009 I started. It might have been toward the end. And I needed a portfolio. And I was still in a stage where if like there was a friend of mine that in a relationship, I would shoot their engagement session, you know? Or here they weren't they weren't in a relationship. They're actually just friends. And I needed to build a portfolio, and so I did. But this is not a paid shot, or I just always really liked the portrait. This is of Leonard Knight. I think I shared it once. Let's skip ahead because we saw a few of them. You know, trying big shots here. Maybe I shouldn't have stopped doing them. I mean, I think that it rounds off a portrait session to have a cool shot like that. I guess I still do it. I guess I do now that I think about it, but I do less of it. The Canon 5D Classic, while low resolution by today's standards, I think still made a beautiful image. Like, I think with good professional glass, I could easily shoot a portrait session with a 5D Classic. And how old is that camera now? Like, what? That camera came out, what, like 2005? Or I don't even remember. I still think I could use it if I had to. A little cheesy here. Always, I think it's important to get a headshot and mix it in with the session. There are some duplicates because some of these images I put in multiple galleries. Let me skip ahead a little bit. Okay, so portrait session. I used to do a lot of these, actually. I used to do a lot of kids' birthday parties. So before I moved into shooting more corporate events, I was doing smaller events. I was always like doing events, also shooting weddings, which is an event. I stopped shooting weddings a while ago, though. I never shot that many of them, except when I first started out. I was kept pretty busy as a second photographer. I was working with a really big studio. Then I started shooting on my own, still shooting with them, then not shooting with them, only shooting on my own. Then I started phasing out weddings, and then years ago I said, I'm really just going to focus on events. And I decided to do that because it's the easiest for me. It's the least consuming of my personal energy. I don't think I feel like I'm an introvert and an extrovert. Require a lot of recharge. I really love working with people, though, at the same time. But I found that shooting weddings back then felt draining. Now they're easy. I look at them differently, but at the time they were very draining. I loved them, but they were draining. And so I kind of decided I want my professional photography to be my work that I enjoy doing. I love it, but it's not my own art. And so I might as well make it easy. Do something that I can just go in and I get to be present at an event, document it, do an easy edit, and be done. All right, a few questions. I think the most important thing hasn't changed. The feeling for the right time/right expression seems to be natural. Composition comes second. Douglas, these look good. These look great, Mick, no matter when they were shot. I don't know how to say your name. Running you. I don't know. Definitely improved, but glad you kept the same language and mostly the editing got much better. I think so too. I didn't really edit much then or now, though. Yeah, I think that not that much has changed as far as my philosophy. It's matured, and I've embraced it more, but I always believed in it, like what I wanted my photography to be about. Like, I think it's important to ask yourself what your photography is about. What's my mission statement, or what in a sentence, what am I offering versus my competition as well? Like, what do I offer that they're not offering? So first, actually, I'm trying to remember if I photographed. Oh, this is the second time I worked with this client. I'm Uncle Mick to this family too, and I've been photographing them since Siddharth was 1 year old, and here he is. He did like a cake smashing. I used to do that kind of job. All right, Douglas. The hardest part about weddings is the fact that they book you 6 months to a year out, way too long when commercial work comes up 2-3 weeks in advance. Very hard to do both. Yeah, that's true. That's true. But most people don't do commercial and wedding photography, I don't think. So not a lot of people, I think, are in that situation. It's kind of, I'd be curious to know how you even market yourself as a wedding/commercial photographer. And, that's a lot of stuff to put on a website, and people tend to want to hire someone who is a wedding photographer for their wedding. They like people that specialize. Rule of thumb in marketing. It doesn't have to be anyone. You can make anything you want work, I'm sure. But I can see how that would be a problem. But if you're just shooting weddings, it's got to be nice to know you're booked out like a half a year to a year in advance and not worry. I book my stuff about 2 weeks out usually, sometimes 2 days out, it depends. But your average job I book would probably be about 2 weeks out. Okay, so let's go to a wedding gallery. So we saw that very first wedding I ever shot, ever. Here, very first wedding I ever shot after working for a while, second shooting, and actually learning how to do wedding photography, not just from the internet. This is my cousin's wedding. It's a beautiful wedding. Jimmy Kimmel is a groomsman in this wedding. Where is he? Right. think that's him right there. It's kind of hard to tell. Yeah, I haven't done a shot like this in many years. Like, hey guys, walk toward me like Reservoir Dogs, you know. I'll still do stuff like this. You can get really cool portraits by saying, all right, squeeze in, and just keep telling them to keep going. Like, no, tighter, keep like squeeze in. And you just keep shooting, and you'll get a lot of cool moments. So Joe and Stacy became incredibly good friends after we just had started to become friends. So I don't think I finished my thought. I knew Stacy from high school, but I didn't really know her. And then I met her fiance through jiu-jitsu. He's one of my best friends now, I'd say. So we became really good friends. And but when I shot their wedding, we were just like started to become friends that year. All right, comment. It's just about your name. Josh. Okay, Josh. Runin ya? Runin ya? Is that what it is? Okay. Another shot I probably would never do now. It's not that bad, but... Here's what I mean, like the cheesy portraits that everyone was doing, like jumping up in the air, or all the groomsmen holding the bride sideways, that kind of thing. The way I would shoot detail shots like that is I would, in order to get a more interesting, more dynamic background, I would kind of strafe light across it by using a strobe. And so I would trigger a remote flash and just kind of, again, just like cascade it across the wall. But the actual main light is just available window light here. You can see the way the 5D Classic did struggle with high... I mean, geez, I'm only at ISO 320. That looks pretty bad for 320. I wonder why it's so... I wonder if I did a heavy crop, I don't know. But I remember the 5D Classic did fall apart at like ISO 800. Like if you shot formals at 800, you'd be like, God damn it, I forgot to change my ISO. Where now you could probably shoot it at like 3200 and it would look okay. So it's important to be a well-rounded photographer and understand many types of photography, including how to use flash and strobes, so that if you're in a situation where the lighting is just terrible, you know what to do. I actually hired a second photographer for this job that a lot of people were raving about in the photography community. She had beautiful work, but all of her work were of weddings in like a forest and with beautiful lighting. And she didn't know how to shoot in a hotel with bad lighting. And that was a problem. I did, luckily, but I had to change the kind of portrait I was shooting. So I did light everything with some speed lights. Low light shot with 5D Classic, super grainy as you can see. I'm at ISO 1000. And this looks like an ISO 6400 by comparison to today's standards, I think. Casta says he's biased but loves the black and white shots. I appreciate it. I love black and white photography too. Casta, I need you to email me too, by the way. Here's my email. I'll let you know what it's about. A little overexposed here. My whites are blown out. I bet I could fix it with the raw file, but... Wedding Crashers had just come out, and so everyone wanted a shot, like it, like the I think it's like the cover art. What do you call it? Of like, or the posters for the movie. Everyone wanted a shot like that. This was a cool wedding. I was second shooting for it. It was the night they moved the space shuttle into the hangar by the Natural History Museum, and they were getting married the night they were going to move it, and it was going to be like front row seats for them, whereas like they were going to be closer, their wedding was going to be closer than the mayor was going to be. But then the shuttle got delayed because it was really hard to move it through LA, and so it didn't happen. But here you go. The news showed up. They interviewed them because their wedding was at the Natural History Museum, and they were going to have front row seats. Really cool timing. This is still, I would call, early career for me, but not super early. I have much better work. I don't know why. I mean, I don't think the work here is bad, but I feel like, I don't know, there's some work that's better. This folder is titled New Portfolio Work, where I probably went back and looked at a lot of my old stuff. This was from, like, I think the second wedding I ever second shot for. So this was probably on a 40D. Yep. 40D, 85, 1.8. This one, I think, was from the first wedding I ever shot as a second photographer. I'm at f4, 188 millimeters. Oh, no, it's... Unless I borrowed a camera. I may have borrowed one. Looks like I'm on a 5D. I love the way the 5D Classic rendered colors versus the 40D. It had more depth to it. It felt more tangible. No, not a free camera. Something like that, maybe. Back then, I did a little of everything. Headshots, whatever. You book what you can book, If you have the luxury, I think specializing is better. But if it's your income and you're starting out, you can't be like, sorry, bro, I only shoot weddings or I only shoot headshots or whatever. You take anything you can get, which isn't ideal for building a business. I think specializing is better. But ideally, you'll have some sort of income where you can then have more of like a systematic or a treat your Okay, I am going to I am going to tape the damn cord in. If I can. It's the most annoying thing in the world. Or maybe I can just tape it closer to the body of the mic. Alright, hopefully that's going to help. Let's go back to Lightroom. And then I'll show you guys some full jobs if you're interested. Let me know, though, if you are interested, if you want to see a full job. Question, how many lenses or cameras will you bring to the wedding? So I've talked about this a bit, where I think it's easy to get on your high horse as an established photographer and be like holier than thou. Like, these are the rules you must follow. You're not a professional if you don't have a second body. You're not a professional if you don't have two memory card slots. I don't subscribe to that. It is a risk to not have two bodies, and you should absolutely have one. And I have one, of course, but I have two bodies. But if you're just starting out, I'm not going to blame you for shooting with what you have, but it's a risk. And I don't remember when I think I had two bodies ever since I bought the 5D Classic. I kept my 40D as a backup, but I never used my second body. I still rarely use my second body. Usually I upgrade, and then my former primary camera becomes my secondary camera. What lenses did I use? I slowly built out a kit. The first semi-professional lens I bought was a 1740. It is a professional lens. Then I might have gotten the 70-200 f4 non-stabilized. Then I got a 24-70. Then I got rid of the 70-200 and I upgraded, So it's a process. But now I have fewer lenses because I've downsized, but I used to have up to 7, I think. I had 17-40, 24-70, 70-200, 85 millimeter fisheye lens. I have like a 50 millimeter that I don't use. So yeah, it depends, but you don't need to have a ton of gear. You could easily shoot a wedding with 2 lenses if you had to, and it could be almost any 2 lenses. You want to have something wide. You want to have a decent telephoto. There's going to be a wedding here or there where maybe you need a zoom, and by zoom I mean like an actual variable zoom, not a telephoto. But some people get by with like a 35 millimeter and an 85, or a 35 and 135. So it depends on the photographer. Still a client of mine. Client and friend, actually. So, it's a wedding. Skip ahead a little bit. See what else we have. Still second shooting at this point. Looks like I had the 5D Mark III. I think it was like the last few months or year I second shot still. Where it was a good way to supplement. I was working regularly as for myself, but I was also getting jobs on the side as a second photographer, which worked really well because he would ask me like that week, a week out, and usually I'd know if I was going to have my own job booked by then. So it was a good way to just keep myself busy. If given the choice, which do you prefer? Same bodies, different MFR? What's MFR? Different manual? No, I don't know what MFR. different lens on each, or two different bodies, same lens on each. I prefer the same body. I hate having, like, I tried to embrace that my 7D Mark II is a cropped frame camera and I can get more reach out of it, but I'd rather just have two bodies, two different lenses personally. If I'm shooting with two, most cases I shoot with one and my second body is sitting in my camera bag in case. Once in a while I use both. A good way to do it, like, let's say I need a lot of reach, I'll put the 70 to 200 on the 7D Mark II and get a ton of reach because it becomes like a 300 millimeter lens on the 7D. And then I'll use the 135 on my 5D Mark III. One thing I don't like is just throwing the 135 on the 7D Mark II because it's more like a 200 millimeter. And so it becomes like a 200 millimeter, but it doesn't have and then has like the depth of field of like a 2.8. So I feel like I'm not taking advantage of that 135, which has such a shallow depth of field if I want it to. I'm new to weddings and most of my lenses are primes. Tried a couple weddings with the 85-50 plus a 35, and now I'm thinking about a zoom. Yeah, a lot of people don't ever get a zoom, so you could make that work if you wanted to. It depends on you. Here I'm looking for little pockets of light, where I can create like a spotlight effect, a little window of light. I 5-starred this image, so I must have liked it. Here's a bunch where I started like taking the highlights of new jobs I would shoot and throwing them into a portfolio folder. This is a simple like backyard small event. Some graduation photography. Smart couple here. They just got an Airbnb for their wedding. It was a beautiful, like, almost beachside property. It overlooked the beach. But we were able to make interesting portraits just walking around. These are the kinds of shots I always loved. I think that might have been, I don't know if it was her first steps that I was able to capture. Don't know why that's in there. I don't know why I have photos of Brixton here. So this is actually the same image, just one's cropped and made black and white. So I think the quality of my work probably has improved, but my philosophy hasn't changed. And I think I've just become more confident. Like, confident in what I do, confident in going my own way and having a vision and pursuing it and not worrying about what other people are doing. That's for sure. That has for sure changed. Client wanted a photo with me, but then they couldn't figure out how to focus. But there I am. Okay, let's jump ahead a little bit. Some of these I might even put on my website, actually. I'm not good at updating my website. I need to update it a lot more than I do. But I end up... The best advice I can give you guys is after every job, and I do it now, you have a checklist of what you're going to do. Like how you're going to rate your files, where you're going to export like certain keepers you really like, that kind of thing. And just do it right away. Because doing it later is a headache. Going through years of photographs, like if you've done it long enough, it's a headache. If you're kind of new, it's not a big deal to look at like all the photos you took this year. But I would really recommend going through every job and running through a checklist. For me, it's I edit them, I add keywords, I export, I rate them. So you can use your own system. There's different ways to rate them in Lightroom, but I rate them, then I export them into different folders with different file sizes. I have a social media folder, I have a Squarespace folder, etc. And that way it's done, because having to go back is a headache. And if you ever lose like your Lightroom catalog or anything like that, that's the worst. Now, every job I shoot, I have multiple backups on my hard drives, but every job I shoot does get uploaded to an online gallery. So worst case scenario, if like everything I owned got wiped out, I'd still have those galleries that are archived. So that's good, but those are high res, not JPEGs, not RAW files. Okay, the last thing I will show or share, well, if you guys are interested, I can show you like one of those first portrait sessions, not in its entirety, but we can go through it really quick. So let me set that up. I have to add it. Chrome. Let's see if that's working. Yeah, there we go. I might have to readjust it. So here's that engagement session. I just went to Smug Mug of Joe and Stacy, friends of mine. Okay. I'll just pick out a few notables. Like here, I think I was just figuring it out. That's out of focus, you know. You can see I actually removed them, or I just made them not visible, because I don't think my editing was as tight as it should have been back then. And then after I had uploaded them, I kind of took a few out. These progressively get better. I definitely have a warm-up period where I need to get my creative juices flowing. Douglas says, I'm updating my site now. Always great to see what other professionals are doing while I go through my life's work. Phew. Thanks again for doing these. Thank you for watching. There's that one shot. Yeah, I think my editing has gotten tighter, but also you have to remember, like, it's about the standard you currently have. Like, sometimes I see portfolios of photographers. This is gonna sound mean. um, Sometimes I see someone's portfolio where I feel like I wouldn't even deliver that to my client, you know. But maybe that's like that's their best. I hate saying that, but stuff I delivered back then, maybe I wouldn't deliver now, you know. I'm sure there's shots in here that would be the case. But also, usually, most people want more. You know, that's not a good shot. The more photos, the better for most people. But ideally, every image is going to be great. Like, you do want to show your best, but you don't want to like feel like you're not offering something your client would appreciate. So you have to kind of ask, what would the client want? Would they want to see this image? If it's yes, then you should deliver it. If it's no, then you know what to do. I don't think we were supposed to be doing this. I think we jumped over like a rope in order to get these shots. Queen Mary is a really cool place to shoot. If you're in like the LA area. I only shot there once, but I would not edit my photography this way. Although they kind of wanted like a sort of a vintage theme, and so, you know, I think the sepia was okay, but nowadays, not my thing. One thing I'll do is I'll quickly hit each reaction, which with the equipment I have now, I could probably do a lot quicker. But so I would try to get each of them in focus in a different shot. But this is an actual, it's not staged really. I mean, I might have placed them, but the moment that happened, I had to be quick to quickly grab focus of each of them. Yeah, Joe really loves Stacy. That's one thing that was always really clear to me. Like, I love them so much. They're awesome. Good people. This was like, okay, wedding blogs, we're all doing this, and like I was saying, I felt pressure to kind of do certain shots because that's what was done and all that. Whereas now I just don't bother. Like, I don't need a shot of you holding your like flowers this way or your hat. It's something I wouldn't do now. So very much I was fighting the urge to. I was fighting the pressure to conform with the desire to do my own thing. Okay, so I'm going to wrap it up shortly. If you have questions for me, put those in the comments real quick. I'm going to also type that out. Here we drove around quickly to see if we could get a shot of the Queen Mary in the background. And I basically am trying to balance my lights with it. Figure out the right shutter speed to allow enough ambient light into it while lighting them with my speed light. They're okay. I think we were like really working fast to try to get a shot. All right. Last call for questions, guys. Last call. Thank you guys for participating for those of you that checked out my community tab and voted. What you guys seem to want to see are critiques. So I hopefully will have a lot of those for you. I do have someone that volunteered. Doug says I didn't suck. But yeah, I should have a new critique this week. I'm going to do that whole marketing episode, and I have a whole list of different ideas, so I don't think I have a shortage of ideas, but I'm just trying to find the ones you guys are most into. As always, feel free to check out my work at mickmilman.com. I have an event photography page. I have an event photography video page in the resources section that you guys can get more info, like watch my videos, but read a little bit about each video. Am I feeling better? I'm having these weird ups and downs. I feel better, then I feel worse. It's weird. I don't know what's going on. So hopefully I don't have coronavirus. I probably do. Who knows? Thanks for asking. I think that's it for today then. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate all of you, and I'll see you tomorrow. Linda, real quick, says, love seeing your earlier work. Not many pros willing to share their early work. I mean, what do I have to lose, you know? Who cares? It's my early work, and it's not that bad. I don't think it's bad. I think my work now is better. I think a lot of it was equipment, though. I think, like, it's weird. Like, in anything, you see most improvement early on because there's so much to learn. And then as you get better and better, it's really about refining. And it takes longer to refine the little things than it does to, like, do these large improvements, if that makes sense. Like, I love jujitsu analogies, although probably no one gets them, but white belts have the most to learn, so you see a lot of progress their first year. You see a lot of progress for the first few years. A purple belt, which is only midway, probably knows as many techniques as a black belt, but yet getting from purple to black belt can take many years because you're refining. So I think I had a decent starting point. I'm not embarrassed by it. I think I was actually pretty good in my first year. But I think I've definitely improved, but it's hard to say. I'll keep thinking about it. All right, that's it for today. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for supporting my channel. If you want to if you want to support me a little bit more, I do have a Patreon. I will link it in the comments. But no worries if you can't afford that. Don't, you know. If you can't afford to support me on Patreon, don't. Simple as that. If you want to support me in other ways, simply just watching. I appreciate having the community around the channel. Check out my website. That helps me as well. And I think it will help you guys. I try to make resources for people because there weren't many when I started out. I pretty much was on my own. I had the closest thing I had to a mentor wasn't really a mentor, a second shot for a seasoned photographer, and that was helpful, but you couldn't just go online and find someone doing a YouTube channel about event photography. In fact, even today, there aren't really, I don't know of any other channels that actually focus on event photography. They're usually like one-off videos about it. But if you guys actually find someone, let me know, because I'd probably watch it. I think it would be cool to check out. All right. Thanks again. See you next time. Yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow at 10:15 a.m. I do Pacific time. I do them every day, 5 days a week. All right, that's it for today. See you guys.